and she's also a former member of the New York City Redistricting Commission and of the Board of Education. Esmeralda, thank you for coming.
Well, I thank all of you for coming out tonight, which to me speaks to the fact that this is not just another referendum issue put out by the Charter Revision Commission, that if there were a referendum, people are actually going to be fired up about this issue, and we'll see a higher than usual turnout. But let me speak to the reason I think that I'm actually on this panel. I'm a voting rights attorney. That's primarily what I do in racial justice law. And already, the Voting Rights Act has been bubbled up as a reason to have something and a reason not to have something. The last time I looked, I didn't notice Michael Bloomberg being part of the Voting Rights Bar, but he has been using the Voting Rights Act as a reason why there should not be a special election, because that will disenfranchise people of color who are protected by the Voting Rights Act. I'm going to say that right now that that's baloney. The Voting Rights Act is about allowing people to vote. Anything that allows people to vote enfranchises them, does not disenfranchise them. And what is accurate, however, is that any change that will be made by the City Council or by a special election would have to go before the Justice Department of the Voting Rights Act. And that, to me, is why some people don't want to have a special election, because they don't know whose Justice Department is going to be. Justice Department of the Voting Rights Act is an executive of the federal government. Usually, the voting rights section of the Justice Department tends to be, when it's under a Democratic administration, on the cutting edge of civil rights enforcement. So you change administrations, you have a referendum in the spring, and you don't know what the result is going to be if it goes before something other than the Bush Voting Rights Department, Voting Rights Section, which has basically said yes to everything. Things I was shocked about. They said was okay, it didn't violate anyone's rights. So I think that's why people are trying to avoid, in one way, having a referendum. Because the referendum change would have to go before the Justice Department. And they're not quite sure how the Justice Department will feel about changing it and the process that was used to change it. That doesn't mean that the Justice Department may not approve it. But what I don't like and what I find to be very, very distasteful about this process is the fact that it is all about having a controlled result. I don't like being duped as a voter. I mean, I am against term limits, but I am principled about being for democracy. And this, to me, is a very offensive process. Make sure that the time limit for a Charter Revision Commission to have it on the ballot in November passes. Start dancing around the issue after, I'm talking about the mayor, start dancing around the issue after that period of time has passed. And I'm going to say this is not forgetfulness, okay? You can put that on me. I do that. This mayor, no. This is a deliberate attempt to move away from the voters who have twice voted for term limits. So I am concerned. I am concerned that, number one, we have been put in this position, and a mayor that has been very, very popular with so many people is now showing what I see to be disdain for the voting public and would rather have cookies and tea with a fellow billionaire to decide how this is going to go down. On the other hand, again, the lesser of two evils, would I prefer the city council folks to vote rather than a referendum? I prefer a referendum. I'm telling you, having a special election is a slap in the face to the electorate when it was unnecessary. But between a referendum and the city council voting, I go for a referendum. I want you all to know, many of you don't know me, I did a lot of work on that 89 charter revision. A lot of work to make it, to even out some of the power between the very, 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 very powerful mayor and the city council. Then the city council got cut down by term limits, the power. So I'm not for term limits. But that doesn't mean that by any means necessary, I'm going to now say practical politics is all that matters, and I hope you heard it didn't come out that way when the mayor said it. I think he said we have to be realistic. I was for one thing, ideally, but now we have to be realistic. Well, pragmatic politics is something I've never approved of. That's one of the reasons I'm not a politician. But as a voting rights attorney, as a civil rights attorney, as someone who has been very, very carefully following what empowers voters in this city, I say that this entire process needs to be exposed as a slap in the face to the electorate. And if we must, let's have the special election and see what the voters say. I dare say they're going to turn it down again.